Not bad at all. For a Monday, I've had worse Mondays. I got mugged on a Monday morning. Well, it's, these streets down here in D.C., they're a little tricky this time of the morning. There's just the winos, the lawmen, and me. And a couple of guys jumped me one morning. I was out at the newspaper machine. And before I knew it, they were on me. So I whipped around. Next thing you know, we were dancing down at Knuckle Junction. And I was holding my own pretty good, buddy. I tell you what, we were speckling the street with saliva and blood. We were kicking, grunting. I felt the reassuring crack of my cuspids against my kneecap. I was getting ready to deliver a Tom McCann enema when somebody hit me from behind. I never saw it coming, just whap! And I dropped to my knees. And when I woke up, I was different. And see, I got up there, and I was woozy. And I didn't think anything about it, and I did my show, and I left, and when I got home, I was still married to Estelle at the time, and I said, "Hi, honey, I'm back. Sorry I'm late. I had to do some production at the radio station, but I'm here now. It's good to see you." She said, "Well, dinner is almost ready." And she looked at me, and she said, without moving her lips, Production indeed. You were probably hobbling some groupie." I said, "What?" She said, "I didn't say anything." Look at him. He needs constant reassurance at all times that he really is a manly man. Ex-ectomorphs are always like that. I said, "What are you saying, Estelle?" She said, "I'm not saying anything. I'm cooking you stinking lunch." Listen to him. Always thinks that I'm thinking about him. And I realized, what the hell's going on? And I looked at her, and I thought, wait a minute, that blow on the head. That blow on the head, my God! It's giving me a power! I said, "I'll be right back, Estelle," and I ran next door, and I rang the neighbor's bell. I said, Bill, are you home?" He opened the door. He said, "Oh, hi, Grease." Look at him. He probably wants to borrow my lawnmower again. I said, "Bill." What is it going to be? Maybe my flyers or my vice grip. He probably wants... I said, "Bill, I don't want to borrow anything." He said, "What?" I said, I just came to say hi." And he looked at me, but I could hear him saying, "He's probably gone over the deep end now. Look at him. His eyes are bloodshot. His complexion pale. I think Nino's finally gone over the edge." I said, "I'll see you later, Bill." And I went back inside, trying to keep those voices out of my brain. The realization hit me that no one could keep a secret from me. That no matter what their face said, I could hear their mind. I could see inside their soul. There is no corner of escape. There is no secret too fetid. I grabbed Estelle. I said, "Give me a baby." And I kissed her hungrily. But I heard, oh God, here comes another feeble attempt for Nino to make love. Another feeble attempt that'll probably end in failure, and I'll be frustrated. And he'll be crying. Oh my God. I went running out of there. And I found the Smash. My best friend, the Smash. He was having band rehearsal, and I thought, well, this is a good time. Maybe I'll just lose myself in music. The noise of the music, yeah. So I showed up at band rehearsal. There was Smash. He smiled. He welcomed me in. And as we walked to the microphone, I heard him thinking, "Oh, man. Now I gotta sing with the Grease again, man. He's gonna ruin another one of my songs. Oh, and he can't even sing, man." He said, "You ready, man?" I said, "Oh, no. I ran into a church. It was no different. I ran into the confessional. I slid the thing shut. I said, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned." I heard the priest say, "Go ahead, my son." But in my head I heard, Oh no, another syrupy confession of somebody else's piddling little sins. I was trying to get to the golf course. Father Cabrini has got us teed off at 7 o'clock, and now I'm going to have to listen to this stupid fool's confessions. How many times has he cursed? How many times has he picked his nose? You know, I should have listened to my mother and gotten to some other sort of thing. I'm thinking, no. I ran from the church with the church music still playing deep in my head. No. Well, I nearly committed suicide, but then I figured, no. I'd probably get to heaven, and as I stood there at the pearly gates, I'd see God looking at me, welcoming me in, but actually thinking, so I knew I couldn't handle it. So I found a doctor who believed in me. The doctor, when he looked at me, I didn't hear that I was a crackpot or a kook. A doctor that was actually sympathetic with my phenomenon. And he worked with me, and I proved to him that I could actually see what he was thinking. But as the days went on, and he gave me tests, I found my ability was lessening, and his diagnosis was finally that it was due to the blow on my head, some kind of psychokinetic phenomenon that will fade in intensity as time goes by. I said, yes, but doctor, I can't stand it. I'll be dead before it goes away. I said, how long do you think? He said, probably 2 weeks. I said, 2 weeks? My God, I'll blow my brains out. He said, I'll tell you what you do. Take a vacation, take a 2-week vacation, and go to France. That way, you may be stupid, but the people, when you read their mind, it'll be in French. You speak French. I said, well, no, I don't speak. He said, well, there you go. I said, but geez, I'll learn. That's the problem. You pick up a language fast. I said, but I like your idea. I like you. So I decided to go someplace where it would be really hard to learn the language. At great expense, I decided to go to Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. Yeah, and it took me on a real outpost deep in the bowels of the jungle. And I got there, and they had a plane drop me in on this crude airstrip, and I got out of there with my bags, and there were the natives all standing around. I said, hey, how y'all doing? And they looked at me and they smiled, but I could hear inside their heads, they were thinking, I didn't know what it meant, though. I said, hi, good to see you. I'm going to stay with y'all for a couple of weeks. Look, I brought a basketball. See, I could hear these noises in my head, but it didn't matter. It was great. They were probably thinking, look at this stupid honky in the wine tip. What do you think he's going to do here in his field? But they might have been thinking that, but I couldn't tell because they were speaking Zimbabwe or whatever the language was. I didn't even care. I joined their native festivals, and I danced that night around the campfire. I thought, this is wonderful. They were probably thinking, look at this stupid way he dances. Got one of them flat honky behinds. He don't know what he's doing. But I didn't care. I found an island miss. And I was lured to her by the flute to the witch doctor, who seemed to be willing our romance. And as she took me into her hut that night, when she pulled me close, she smiled as we made love. And as we made love, I could hear her thinking, Kuwasa. I said, baby, I held her face in my hand. I said, I know you can't understand a word of what I'm saying, but I just want to let you know that right now, at this moment in time, I love you. And I heard her say, I smiled, thinking to myself, I don't know what it means, but baby, if she can be thinking it at a time like this, it probably means big man, big lover, big power. And so all night long, I'd look at her, I'd giggle, I'd say, you know something? You're a sweetheart, you know that? You are a sweetheart, sweeter than any of the girls I know back in the States. She'd smile and say something, but I'd hear her thinking, Kuwasa, Kuwasa. Well, a couple of weeks passed in joyous reflection. And sure enough, when the plane landed, I went to the end of the runway. I said, I'm ready to go. Looks like a nice day, isn't it? The pilot said, yeah. Nice day. And I looked at him. I looked at his inscrutable native face to see if he was thinking anything about me, and I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. It was wonderful. So he got in the plane, and he revved up that engine, and I waved to all the natives, and I waved to my little beauty, who was already, I'm sure, soon to be heavy with child. The pilot revved it up. We went about 10 feet, and then he backed down on the engines. I said, what's the matter? He said, we can't take off now. Runway 2 covered with kuwasa.
Crazy? Yeah, he's crazy. But you're the one listening to the Greaseman.